You ever notice how we tend to think about kids? Like they're these little bundles of pure innocence. Well, get ready to dive into something a little different today.
Yeah, this deep dive is going to shake things up a bit.
We're cracking open this really old educational text, and let me tell you, it straight up challenges that whole born as blank slates idea.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it does it head on. It's fascinating how directly it takes on that conventional wisdom. We're in volume 6, pages 47 to 49, and it doesn't shy away at all from this idea that children, they come into the world, well, equipped for good and for, let's say, less good.
So not holding back, huh? I mean, when they say capacity for good and evil,
right,
it's not like they're just talking about kids being a bit mischievous. This is deeper.
Exactly. It's not just about labeling a kid as good or bad. This text seems to be getting at something much more nuanced about human nature itself.
Okay, so how do we make sense of that then?
Well, think of it like this.
Yeah.
Imagine a seed, right? It holds that potential to blossom into something beautiful, a flower, but it also might have, well, thorns. Depends how it's taken care of, the environment it's in, all that.
So are we saying then that it's like natural for kids to act up sometimes?
In a way, yeah.
Like it's not always a sign of bad parenting, it's just part of this inherent, what did you call it?
Complexity, yeah. And the text seems to suggest that instead of trying to, squash these negative parts, we should focus on cultivating the positive.
Interesting. Nurture the good stuff.
Right. Like a gardener, you don't just spend all your time yanking out weeds, right?
Makes sense. You focus on creating an environment where the good stuff can thrive.
Exactly.
That actually reminds me of all those modern parenting books you see. They're always about focusing on a child's strengths. It's like this idea has been around forever.
It's timeless, isn't it?
It really is. But, there's another point I found interesting. The text also talks about the importance of physical well-being. Like, it even mentions tuberculosis specifically.
Oh, that's a curious one. What's interesting there is that it's not saying that a child is doomed if they have, a weakness or predisposition.
No, it's not predetermined. So, like, acknowledging genetics and environment matter.
But it's not the whole picture. There's this element of maybe chance or resilience.
Exactly.
It's like, a kid might be prone to, say, having a quick temper, but that doesn't automatically mean they're going to have serious behavioral issues down the line.
It all depends.
Right. And the source was emphasizing the interplay between these things, even back then, nature and nurture.
One thing that surprised me, it's not all like, heavy philosophical stuff about good versus evil in this text.
Right.
There's this whole part about the role of the senses, like actually how important they are for kids' development.
Yeah. And it really digs into that. Doesn't just mention it in passing. There's a whole section on smell, on really cultivating a child's sense of smell, which I thought was pretty neat, actually.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first saw that, I was like, smell, really? But then I actually read it, and you know what? It makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Totally. It argues that, we kind of take our sense of smell for granted, especially when it comes to experiencing pleasure.
Huh. Interesting.
It specifically talks about, how beautiful smells in nature, think like flowers or fresh air even, or ripe fruit, how those things can bring this unique type of joy that's not quite the same as, say, enjoying the taste of something.
It's true though, right? Just a simple smell, it can really bring back memories, or just evoke a feeling. For me, fresh cut grass, instant childhood summers.
Exactly. And that's kind of what the text is getting at. It seems to be saying that if we really try to cultivate this sense of smell in kids, it's like we're helping them appreciate the world around them on this whole other level. It's almost like we're opening up this whole new way for them to find beauty and a sense of wonder.
I like that. It's like we always say stop and smell the roses, but this is like taking it way further.
For sure. For sure. Now, switching gears a little bit, the text also gives this, it's a pretty direct warning about what it calls, get this, nervous overpressure in children.
Nervous overpressure. Okay, that sounds kind of intense. What exactly does that mean?
So basically it's talking about pushing kids too hard, even from a young age, all that overstimulation. Like the text argues that if we're constantly pushing them to their limit, whether it's academics or socially, even extracurriculars, it can really backfire, be harmful to their well-being.
Wow. That's pretty relevant to today, though, isn't it? I mean, think about it. Kids today, they've got the pressure of school, social media. It's like this constant stream of information coming at them.
It's a lot.
No wonder anxiety is such a huge issue for kids these days.
Right. And what's interesting is the text seems to be saying that this isn't new. This pressure on kids has been going on for as long as we've been pushing kids to achieve, to be the best, even if it means maybe they're not doing so hot in other areas.
It makes you wonder, like, have we gone too far? Have we made it so that downtime for a kid equals laziness? Or like free play is, I don't know, a luxury they don't have time for?
Such a good question, and I think the text would agree. It definitely seems to push for this more balanced approach to childhood, recognizing that it's not just about the mind, right? It's about the whole kid, their spirit, their emotional well-being, all of it.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy trying to give kids every advantage, but are we actually, taking something away in the process? This whole thing's really got me thinking.
It really makes you think, yeah. And speaking of thought-provoking, towards the end there, the text has this, well, it's an anecdote about teachers. You know how some teachers just have that certain something?
Oh, totally.
They walk in a room and boom, they've got everybody hanging on their every word.
I know exactly what you mean. Had this history teacher in high school, right? He could make like the French Revolution sound like an action movie. Everybody loved that class. But okay, so what's this text saying about these teachers?
So it uses this metaphor, right? And it's a pretty striking one. It compares these magnetic teachers, these really charismatic ones, to the Pied Piper of Hamelin.
Okay, now that's interesting, but also kind of, I don't know, ominous.
Right.
Like, on the one hand, you've got this figure who's clearly captivating, but then, the Pied Piper, he leads all the children astray.
Exactly. It's a loaded comparison for sure. And I think what the text is getting at is that, yeah, having a big personality can be awesome for a teacher, but there's a potential downside too.
Like maybe those students, they get so caught up in the teacher's whole thing, they don't actually form their own opinions.
That's exactly it. Like the text is cautioning against relying too much on personality, to the point that it maybe even holds a child back from being their own person. It's a tough balance to strike.
That is a tough one. So how do you find that balance, inspire kids without taking over, It's like that saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day.
Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Right, exactly.
It's about giving them the tools to think for themselves, right?
Yeah, to question things, to make their own way, even if it means going a different direction than their mentors.
Exactly.
This deep dive, it's given me so much to think about. And this text, even though it's pretty old, it feels shockingly relevant to how we think about kids today.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing how much these big questions, they just keep coming up no matter what.
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture, education, how to help kids reach their full potential. Those are timeless.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening who's maybe feeling a little, overwhelmed by all this, by the whole raising kids, teaching kids, or even just being around kids thing, I think what we talked about today can be kind of reassuring in a way.
How so?
Well, it reminds us there's not just one right way to do it, right? No magic formula. It's more about really seeing kids for who they are, with all their complexities, accepting the messiness of it all, and trusting that they've got this amazing potential inside them.
And maybe, just maybe, if we do a good job, a little bit of that wonder that kids have, maybe some of that rubs off on us too along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, everyone, and we hope you'll join us next time as we continue to explore the endlessly interesting world of the human experience.